Okay, this is Pre-Calculus Part 1, Section 4.1, Angles and Radian Measure, page 464, Example 3, Converting from Radians to Degrees. So there's only two ways to convert. You're either multiplying by pi over 180 or 180 over pi. And the easiest way to remember that is the one that you want goes on top. So for example, if I'm converting from degrees to radians, I want radians, which means my pi radians goes on top and the degrees goes on the bottom. If I'm converting from radians to degrees, then I want to multiply by 180 over pi because I want degrees, which means the degrees goes on top. Okay, so converting from radians to degrees, we're going to use number 2. We're going to multiply by 180 over pi. So for part A, it says pi over 3 radians. So pi over 3, we're going to multiply that by 180 over pi. And the reason we do it this way is so that now we have a pi on the top and a pi on the bottom, and they can go away. And the radian label as well. So that leaves you with 180 over 3, which is 60 degrees. So what that's saying is that pi over 3 radians is exactly the same as 60 degrees. Okay? Negative 5 pi over 3 radians, just because it's negative doesn't change anything. You're still doing negative 5 pi over 3 times 180 over pi, because again, we're looking for degrees. The pi radians go away, which leaves you with negative 5/3 times 180. 3 goes into 180. 60 times 5 is 300. So the negative just carried all the way through. So it's negative 300 degrees. 1 radian. Okay, now here's a catch. You have to be careful that you do not assume that 1 radian is pi. Pi radians is pi. 1 radian is not pi. So the radians are going to cross out here, but not the pi, because there's not a pi here and you can't just plug one in, because 1 is not the same value as pi. So it's 1 times 180 over pi. Now we actually have to divide by pi, which is going to give us an approximate answer. So 180 divided by, hopefully you have a pi button because it's more accurate, otherwise 3.14. And that gives you about 57.3 degrees. Okay, so if we go down here and do the ones that it gave us, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to take pi over 4 radians. We're going to multiply that by 180 over pi because we're trying to get to degrees. The pi radians are going to cross out. 180 over 4, so 45 degrees. Negative 4 pi over 3, again, remember the negative just goes all the way through the end. We don't have to do anything with that. So negative 4 pi over 3 times 180 over pi. The pi's cross out, so 4 times 180 over 3 gives you negative 240 degrees. The negative just sort of came with it. 6 radians, again, notice no pi here. You can't just insert one. So it's 6 radians times 180 over pi. So 6 times 180 is 1080 divided by pi. So again, we're going to get an approximate value because pi never ends. So we get 343.77 degrees. If you are trying to get degrees, the degrees goes on top. So it's 180 over pi. If you're trying to get radians, you flip it and it put the pi on top, so it'd be pi over 180.